Hello, and welcome to a new video and to a new Sims 4 speed build video. And in today's video, we are rebuilding a real life architecture element in the city I currently live in. So I do live in Lisbon, and I had the idea of building this in The Sims because I really like it from an architecture standpoint. So it is very grand and also beautiful. And also, I wanted to challenge myself to try and build something that exists and that isn't necessarily, a residential building with rooms and all of that. So the challenge here was really to try and replicate the best as I could this monument, let's say, which is pretty much just, a square and these buildings surrounding the square. So that's what we are doing today. And if you don't know a lot of Lisbon's history or Portuguese history in general, there was a huge earthquake in Lisbon in 1755, so that was a while ago. And the whole city was in shambles. It was quite awful. And after the earthquake there was also a tsunami, so you can imagine everything on fire and then a tsunami coming. So yeah, afterwards the whole downtown area was reconstructed, so there was a plan. And if you've never been to Lisbon, you may not have been aware of this, or even if you have. So this downtown area, this is pretty much the heart of Lisbon. It is really in the center of it and in front of the river. That area, all of that downtown area, is very structured. So the streets are all parallel to each other, very organized. And the rest of the city isn't really like that. It mostly follows the natural structure of the land or of the city. So whoever has been to Lisbon probably knows that you have a lot of walking up and down. You have a lot of steep hills to climb and a lot of stairs as well. So yeah, in the summertime it can be a little bit hellish. But yeah, that's a little bit of context. So this area here is obviously a bit more on the lusher side, and also it has a bunch of, I would say tourist traps, which is, this is mainly a spot for very bougie and fancy places to eat, and also brands to sell their stuff, and also souvenir spots. It has overtaken the downtown area, I would say, but regardless, this is very much still a beautiful place in Lisbon. It is a must visit, of course. And Lisbon isn't huge when you compare it to other European cities. So you can see the whole of it in very few days, to be honest. The most difficult part really is doing it on foot, because you have to go up and down a lot. So yeah, every day is leg day. But yeah, as you can see here, when the video started, I had a lot of objects placed there. So before I started recording, I went through the catalog, including the debug and the live edit catalogs. I wanted to search for a lot of objects that could help me build the archway, and especially the ornaments that we have on the archway. So obviously that is going to be difficult to recreate, because we are limited to what we have in the game, and in real life it is very intricate and beautiful. So of course we will be rebuilding it having in mind these limitations of the game. So I did go around and try a lot of the columns as well, because in real life they have these really thick, tall columns supporting a lot of the parts of the archway on either side. And we didn't really have anything like that in the game, so we do end up going, I think, with these columns that we can see in the corner there. I tried some others, also some debugged objects, and it wasn't really working out. And we do use these archways all around the build, because that area of that square has a bunch of those just surrounding it. And this was a really nice addition, I think. And one thing I like about these buildings is they are very, they're grand, but also they have this yellow color, which a lot of buildings in Lisbon and in Portugal, they have these colorful paintings outside, and also a lot of tile. So tile is obviously a very Portuguese thing as well. And I was really happy to find out that we have some Portuguese tiles in the most recent pack, the Legacy, what you call it? I don't remember, but the Royalty pack, Royalty and Legacy, is that it? So we do have those tiles, and I've seen some people commented that it's a shame that we don't have some other colors for those tiles, so they're just white and blue. And that is honestly the traditional tile. I can see why some people would be mad about that, but also, you know, it's something that's very traditional, so I personally am not mad about that. And we have a lot of other tiles in the game that can also be used, you know, in the outside of the building, so you could recreate any building in Lisbon with what we already have. So yeah, I was just happy we got those in the game. I was also using those bases there for the columns because I wanted to have more grandeur, so we don't end up using those, but that was an idea that I had. And then we use this as also the base for our archway, because we can't really do much in The Sims. Also, I mean, we can't do much in terms of having an arched wall without having to use a lot of workarounds. So, you know, I decided to keep it on the simpler side and then just use that one whole piece, and then I built around it. And also, because we can only build 4 stories in The Sims, this ends up being a little bit higher or taller than 4 stories, especially or essentially in the archway. So we do end up doing a little platform outside of this whole building thing, so we can build on the very top of the archway. After figuring out the size that I wanted for the archway, I started placing some of the statues, because there are a lot of statues in this arch, and I was trying to mimic the fact that there's like this kind of wave near this statue. And we do use a lot of wall decals. As you can see there, I placed a lot of stuff, and most of it is on this white-ish shade, or this like stone look, this white stone or clear stone. That's because I wanted to keep it as close as possible to the original. So, you know, there was a lot of experimenting, a lot of back and forth with this build. And we do use these. I think these are from also the most recent pack, the Royalty and Legacy pack. And we use those all around because there are some similar things to this in the real life archway. And we start building on this slot, but soon I realized that this isn't very big for what we want to do. Initially I was only gonna do a small version of the town, but then we move this to a 64 by 64 in Windenburg, and we actually end up kind of building the whole thing in that lot. And still, it wasn't big enough to do much else than do the actual square. And like, in the end, it looks like a set. I decided not to build anything on the interior. I wanted the focus to be really on just recreating this. And also, I don't really know how it looks on the inside, or I have only ever been on the top of the archway, because you can visit it. You pay like a small entrance ticket fee. And then you also have like this shop with little souvenirs. And then when you walk in, you take the elevator, and then you're up there. So I don't really know how it looks on the interior of the arch, and also the buildings all around. I'm not even sure what they're for, to be honest. I know that in the area you have a bunch of different stuff. You know, you have banks, you have everything you'd expect in the center of a big city, a big European capital. But yeah, this here we're putting. I made this wall to kind of figure out where I wanted to start doing like the most ornamented part of the arch. And then I just started grabbing a bunch of different things and placing them to kind of make this, I don't know, replicate the feel that we have in real life. And as you can tell, this is the 4th level, the 4th story. So we couldn't really go up from that, so I just built it on this level, and then I raise everything up in the end with the tool mod. So yeah, as I said earlier, there is just a lot of experimenting, a lot of trial and error to see what looks good and how I can make this work. And also, I'm not exactly recreating again what I what we have in real life, only as close as possible. And I just place a bunch of objects and decorations there so we can have this feel that this is a very ornamented piece, instead of like actually recreating, you know, the Portuguese elements that we have there. And also in terms of statues, of course, we are limited to the statues that we have in games, so we don't have an exact matching or the exact same statues that we have in real life, obviously. So yeah, here I ended up going for this piece to kind of have this wave effect that we have in real life. But yeah, I started just placing a bunch of stuff, and I like how it came out because there are a lot of overlapped objects, and I feel like I could get really creative with this and coming up with quote unquote new objects. So just going back and forth with it. And this is a different type of build that I don't do often, and it's more in the world building aspect of building, which I really wish we had a tool that lets us build worlds in The Sims. Maybe one day, and I know that some people already do. There are mods that wipe out the entire world and then you can start making your own, but I really wanted to make something more authentic in terms of I don't want to take something that already exists and still be limited to the lots that we have there. So yeah, hopefully one day we can do that. And then these decals right here are probably like the best ones that we have for this build. I think these came with also Royalty and Legacy, and they help frame the archway and everything really well. So yeah, a lot of objects from Royalty and Legacy have been used in this build, as well as I think those archways and also the windows that I'm using there. I use some different types of windows, but we do use a lot of objects from that pack, so that's definitely one that is the most necessary for this build. And again, if you would want to have this in your game, this would probably like just like a park lot. I have, as I said, I didn't even include a bathroom. I just wanted to do it for the sake of it, to have fun, and also as a challenge to myself. And here I am just experimenting with a lot of stuff to see what looks good. And I was having some serious doubts about how to make this work, but in the end I think we actually achieve it. And if you look at some pictures of how it looks like in real life, I think we got it, at least in terms of having that effect. I think it looks pretty good. And yeah, just adding more details, that was the secret to this, I think, including a lot of things, but also not overdoing it. And I could tell right away when I thought that something wasn't really working. For instance, that leaf sculpture there, the texture wasn't really helping. I don't think it wasn't really looking like marble or stone, and so in the end I just deleted. So I keep it more on the simpler side. So instead of using a bunch of different objects, I use more of the same objects, so it gives this sort of that there's this continuous element, and yeah, just everything flows together more nicely. Also, I use this angel statue just because I feel like it's very pretty, and I also use it on the very top of the arch, and I thought it provided a nice touch to what we had there. But yeah, as I was saying, we use these elements pretty much. This is kind of what it looks like in the end, and you know, it's not exactly filled with objects or decorations. And if you look at the original or the real life thing, it has a bunch of detail, and I had never really paid close attention to it because it can be a little bit overwhelming. And also, you know, in real life you look at it, it's really pretty, but then you have all of this experience with also being there and being able to walk under the archway, and there's like a clock on the other side, and then under it you also have some other decorations. So in the standpoint of architecture, it is really, really stunning. And this is when I start to select everything with the tool mod, so I can lift it up and position it a little bit better, or where I want everything to be. So yeah, this is more or less where it ends up going. And then we also start shifting and positioning everything, because soon I will be replicating the left side to the right side. So building more platforms and also placing more statues, and then just copying or mirroring what we have on the left side. So we use this statue here, and in real life there are more levels, it seems, or more platforms in that area. But I felt like this worked really well, having those 3 levels. So the man sitting, then the man standing, and then the other woman up there. And then of course we have the final level, which I did place some more statues than what we have in real life, because in real life it is very grand and very, like, I don't know how to describe it really. If you look at it, you will be able to tell. And so I placed 5 statues instead of 3 on top, and just to give more dimension. But yeah, and this is when I start making that platform that I was talking about. So to be able to lift it above the 4th floor. So we do that, and then I just expand it a little bit so we can place the statues up there. And this statue ends up being like the centerpiece, let's say, and I really like how it looks in the end. It really does make it look very expensive, let's say. I put this one on this side, and then on the other side I place another statue, and it kind of looks like these are working people, which I thought was really earnest. We also try placing some of these decorations around, and in the end we go for those bases that we were using on the columns, but really sized up, because I thought they gave this nice layer where you could put the statues on. And this is the other statue that we end up using. And then we have behind them those, again, 2 angels, or those angel statues that we used in the facade as well. I just thought it gave some more dimension, and you know, reusing elements makes it look a little bit more like there's some sort of continuity. So yeah, that's what we did, and it kind of gives this effect of a triangle. So you have the taller in the middle, and then the shorter ones on either side. So yeah, it's kind of the illusion that we also have in real life. And I was looking at it and feeling like we were really getting somewhere with this. And this is when we start adding these bases, as I said, to make this platform here. And we end up using 3 of these in this really big size. So we have this semi-natural looking structure, but it also provides a little bit of decoration as well, and it looks a bit more structured than what it did before, because the object itself isn't very neat, let's say. And then we had these statues, which is from the romantic garden stuff pack, and unfortunately they don't really go up that much. They were probably the closest that we had to what we have in real life. And then I also thought of using this object, but then didn't really make sense. I wanted to use regular columns, so we just go for these ones. These are from Discover University, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, and then we just start mirroring everything and replicating what we have on the left side here on the right side. And then in the end we also use this statue. I thought it added a nice touch there, that arrow. I don't know, it made it look a little bit more like that was the focal point. It already was, in my opinion, but that really was like the cherry on top of the cake. So I left it there. Another element. And also in the real life thing, we have something written in the archway, which I don't exactly remember. But instead of including that, I just placed that statue. So, you know, you can't have everything, so let's have a few things. But yeah, here I just swap the windows here, just because these look way more like what we have in real life. And then I almost forgot about this, we also include this bit here. I don't know, I just thought it looked nice. And then I wanted to get rid of everything, and instead of deleting one by one, I just moved the lot, you know, to the back, and then everything that was out of the limits just disappeared. So yeah, we kept that statue because we have a horse statue in the middle of the square, so I knew I wanted to use that. And this is when I start to really conceptualize, okay, I should do the whole square and not just this part right here. And so we start doing that. And this is when I realized that I need to change lots, because that was not a big enough lot. We are in Windenburg, and this is a 64 by 64, and obviously we have way more room to work with, and so I started making the buildings that go on either side of the square. And because I had sized down a little bit, just the tiniest bit, this archway so it fit here with the tool mod, I have to duplicate it with the tool mod as well. So yeah, and then we also build the second floor, of course. And I really like that we have this yellow color right in the center of this square. And this square is also used for a lot of events as well. So since we're having a lot of football matches now, people gather and watch the games here. And also there are just a bunch of stuff here all year round, you know, different celebrations, New Year's Eve. So yeah, this really is just a square for all the people, even though it's just filled with, you know, tourist attractions and also the tourists themselves. And also I really love that we get these like Portuguese pathways in the game, which if you don't know, let me tell you, they are so slippery. And we have a lot of hills in Lisbon, and this is the type of stone that they decided to put. So, you know, when it's raining, it is hell. And even in summer, they are slippery. So depending on the shoes that you're wearing, it's always a trip. So, you know, sometimes it's better to just walk in the middle of the road. And this isn't exactly the final layout, because in real life, it isn't closed off like this. So on either side, there's like a gap, because there's a road there, and we actually include that road because I wanted to put some tram cars. And in Lisbon they are yellow, or they are famously yellow, but we only have green ones in the game, so we just used those. I just thought it was fine that way. So these are the ones, these are the trams that we have. And also I was doing this sort of tram line with this tiny fence that we have in the game. But then it didn't really make sense the way I was building this here, so that's kind of the reason why we just split those buildings and do them more like they are in real life. So this is the fence that we are using, because if they function like this, so there isn't really a curve there, and I also didn't want to venture with round platforms because it wouldn't even be accurate in the first place. So yeah, we changed that in the end. We do crossroads here because of course that's something that we have in real life, and we add some details as well, of course, to make this look way more realistic. And then I started making this structure for the statue that we have in the middle, and in real life it is more on the circular side, but again, I didn't really want to use circular platforms because I knew I wanted to place some stairs, and stairs can be rough to play with in The Sims, especially if you have diagonals, because you can't place them on diagonals, and also they look weird sometimes in round platforms, especially if it's a small platform. Something on this of this size would look weird because you would be able to see the edge of the stairs. I'm not sure how to explain it better, but yeah, just trust me that this shape will hold up and it will look a little bit better than if it were round. And also here we are just experimenting what sort of base for the statue that we wanted. Now, obviously, the real thing is a man riding a horse. I won't say his name because if you want to search on it, you definitely could. It is definitely a fun investigation if you want to do that, if you're interested in these kind of historic figures. And this is when we start doing that transformation. So instead of having this wraparound road, we have only in front of the archway itself. And then because this is how it goes in real life, so we only have the road back there, and then on either side we have, it's just a place for people to walk, and then we have a bunch of cafes and stuff. So we put that in the end as well, some like decorative seating areas outside, so it's a little bit more accurate. And here I am just extending those tram lines, so we have one on either side, and then we just place two on each line. And here we are just adjusting how this kind of functions. So painting everything with this, we actually end up just painting everything. And if we had more space in front of the lot, we would be also able to place like a river. That would have been fun, and have this like kind of, it's not a pier, but it's like this entrance into the river which is very picturesque, and a lot of people take pictures there, obviously, because you can see the river and then you can see the other side of the river, which is a different city. And there's obviously in the background the iconic bridge, which looks like the San Francisco bridge. So that's fun. If you don't know, definitely look it up. And it's just fun that they look so alike. So the bridge that we have in San Sequoia, because it is based on the San Francisco bridge, also kind of looks like the bridge that we have in Lisbon. So yeah, here I am just adding some details on either end of this section because, again, we wanted to make it look as close as possible to the real deal. So we just end up placing that, and also we add the roof as well, which we paint orange, and you have a really gorgeous view from up there from the archway, and you can see a lot of the houses or the buildings all around the city, which have this just the same type of roof and roof colors. And then behind these like columns, we place these decorations. Now, this isn't exactly something that happens in the real one or in real life, but we do have in the real life version, they are, these columns are really thick, and they are like one in front of the other. So I felt like we needed to do something to kind of give it more detail, and so this is what I end up doing, and this kind of ties in with the other elements that we have up there. So I thought that was a cool solution. And then another thing that we have in real life is these buildings that we have at the end of these sections, and I'm not really sure what they're meant to be, but they are there, and they're beautiful as well in terms of architecture. So they are just these really big square buildings, and they have also a bunch of windows which are very ornamental as well. And so we end up resizing the square so it looks more like it is in real life. And here we're just applying the roof to every single piece that has a roof and then just painting it. And this was when I was like, okay, this really looks like it reminds me of the real thing, not to toot my own horn, but I really like this. And then we place also a fence around. Oh, and also I didn't really place any windows or anything like that in the back of the build for two reasons. One, it really isn't the focal point of the build, and the second one is that we already had so many objects I didn't want to overdo it and overwhelm, in terms of performance. The more objects you have, the slower the build is. So, I didn't want that to happen. And if you were to have a lot of sims in this build, then it would make sense to not be overdoing it. So that's also why there is nothing in the interior of these builds. I didn't even paint them. As I said, the focus is on the outside. But I do think it would be a fun project to kind of have this be part of a bigger world, and then building the interiors as maybe houses, maybe some other businesses. That would definitely be a challenge if we had personalizable worlds. But yeah, here I am just gonna decorate a little bit how these buildings look. And again, I'm just gonna paint them, put some windows and doors, and then we move on to make the final version of the statue in the middle. So these are the windows that we go for, and also the door. I liked all the ornaments that they had, and again, these are from the royalty pack, except for the very top ones, which I think those are also from Discover University. And afterwards we just copied one and pasted on the other side, because this is a very similar build in terms of copy and paste, so they are mirrored in that sense. But yeah, we also changed the wallpaper, because in real life we have this like pattern that's kind of like this one, but it's tilted on a diagonal, if that makes sense. So this was the closest that we had. I go for that one. And then in the middle we do end up just doing the same type of shape, but we do play around later on with the stairs and also some fences, because in real life we do have those fences. And initially I had this little thing here, but then we just use this fountain to make this kind of structure for the statue to sit on. And I actually liked, weirdly, how it looked, because it had this look this very similar look to how the archway looked as well. So this base and then just the simple stone up there. And also for the actual base, we used this piece, so it's more on the rough side, which I think contrasted nicely to the neatness of what was underneath. So yeah, we just place the horse on top of it, and then we reuse these decals as well. And on this statue, I actually placed something, I think a sign with like something written on it, because in real life we also have that, so I just wanted to put a little bit of decoration here. And I reused some of the objects that we had in the archway itself. So this was one of them, just to kind of make a little similar thing. And this is probably the most different part from the actual thing, but I took the liberty to do that. And here we are. I think this is the one that we used in the end. And then we place some stairs, and we also start playing with the fences. We use, I think, big one from Royalty and Legacy, and also the shorter one as well. We also play with platforms there, because in real life they have like these little areas where people can sit actually, which is very nice. So I was kind of inspired by that to make those platforms. And this is when we start doing those platforms that I was talking about. The stairs were clipping very weirdly. They wouldn't really sit on the lower part, so I had to push that out, and it worked like that, but we leave it pushed out. And I figured that's fine, because it also kind of looks like what we have in real life. So, and we use that smaller fence for that little part there, and also here. So, you still have this separation from the actual statue, but you also get to hang out and your view isn't exactly blocked. But yeah, in real life, those fences are tall as well, so I suppose people don't climb over and vandalize it. But yeah, afterwards we just painted like the base of it, and this is kind of how it looks. And afterwards we just place a bunch of chairs. So you know what, let's check how the final build looks like in the game. So here we are in the final build. This is what it ended up looking like, and I'm really happy with how this came out. Now obviously we have the archway itself, which was a bunch of work, but it is also the main point of this build. And this is what it looks like. And also we have the square itself, we have the horse statue right here, and then of course we have some cafes and restaurants to the side. I also made sure to include some decoration there, just in case you wanted to take some pictures. I feel like it would be a really nice spot for that. And then over on this side we also have some chairs, so we have some lounge areas where you can relax, and also some restaurants. And I wanted it to be natural looking, because this is kind of what we have in real life. And then obviously we have the trams as well. But yeah, we built this on a 64x64. Now obviously we also have these buildings here on each end, which also looked really nice, and I think they framed the whole thing pretty well. But yeah, sadly we can't have the whole city here. It would be really nice to have it as a backdrop, but I feel like we were able to just do a lot with what we have. And I also did place some lights, so we can play around with the build if we wanted to. Maybe I'll bring my sim self here and take some pictures, who knows. But yeah, I think this looks nice with a lot of lightings. So yeah, and as I said, the backside doesn't really have anything, so let's not look there. But yeah, let me know what you think of this build, and if you have any other suggestions, please let me know. I am down to recreate some other monuments, not only in Portugal but anywhere in the world. I love being inspired by what different cultures and different regions have. This lot will be in the gallery. My idea is Cats Against Crime. There is no CC used. You can also find all of that in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!